Good evening. Welcome to the December 12th edition of the Downers Grove Village Council meeting. We're glad you've joined us tonight. Whether you're watching at home or watching here, we appreciate the interest. As is our normal tradition, we will begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rosa, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Barnett,
Here.
Commissioner Jose, Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit.
Here.
Commissioner Gilmartin,
Here.
Commissioner Glover,
Here.
Commissioner Tully,
Here.
Commissioner Davenport.
Here.
Welcome, everybody. We do expect Commissioner Jose to join us a little bit later. Item 3, is there a motion concerning minutes of previous council meetings?
Mayor, I move to adopt the minutes of the December 5th, 2023 Village Council meeting and the executive session meeting minutes for December 5th, 2023 as presented.
Second.
Any council comments or questions about those minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's passed unanimously. Item 4 is our public comments portion of the meeting. This is the portion of the meeting where we take comment on items not on tonight's agenda. So if you've joined us this evening to let us know what's on your mind and it's not on tonight's agenda, please come on down to the podium and tell us what you're thinking. Okay, we will continue. Item 5 is the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously as well. Item 6 is our active agenda. This is the portion of the meeting where we plan to take action on items previously discussed at least one other time, sometimes multiple times. Is there a motion concerning active items B through I?
We're just doing that. We're not going to do A.
Oh,
A
yeah,
first.
I guess we should probably do A before we do B.
It is the first letter of the
Details, details, Leslie, details. Thank you. All right, hold on a second. We're going to start over again. The mayor can't follow his own script. Is there a motion concerning the aggregate tax levy ordinance?
Mayor, I move to adopt the 2023 aggregate tax levy ordinance as presented.
Second.
Any comments or questions from the audience on the tax levy? Comments or questions from the council on the tax levy?
No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The 2 passes unanimously. Let's try again. Active items B through I.
Mayor, I move to adopt ordinances 2023, do I have to read this whole thing, or can I just do this? 2023-10079, ordinance 2023-10080, ordinance 2023-10082, ordinance 2023-10083, ordinance 2023-10084, ordinance 2023-10085, ordinance 2023-10087, and ordinance 2023-10130, active items B through I as presented.
Second.
Before we go to the audience for questions, I'm sure you're all dying to approach the podium on this. If you're watching at home or just joining us for the first time tonight, we have about 16 items that have to do with our tax levy. These have been discussed multiple times. They are really at this point sort of performative and required by the state. And so we have grouped some of them, and we're certainly welcome to talk about any of them, but we are going to try and move through it. So are there any questions from the audience on the first set of items B through I shown on our agenda? Council comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That 2 passes unanimously. Okay, is there a motion, excuse me, is there a motion concerning levying of taxes for fiscal year commencing on January 23rd, item J on our agenda?
Mayor, I move to adopt the ordinance levying taxes for the fiscal year commencing on the first day of January 2023 and ending on the 31st day of December 2023 for the Village of Downers Grove Special Service Area Number 6, Fairview Fire Protection District as presented.
Second.
Any comments or questions from the audience on this item? Council questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 2 passes unanimously. Item K.
Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance levying taxes for the fiscal year commencing on the first day of January 2023 and ending on the 31st day of December 2023 for the Village of Downers Grove Special Service Area Number 11, Downtown Downers Grove, as presented.
Second.
One more time, audience questions on the levy. Council comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 2 passes unanimously. This next set of motions concerns some abatements. Is there a motion concerning active items L through Q?
Mayor, I move to adopt items L through Q on the active agenda for ordinances abating a portion of the 2023 tax levy related to the general obligation bonds, Series 2019, Series 2022, and refunding bonds, Series 2014, 2015, 2016, and 2020, as presented.
Second.
Comments or questions from the audience on this item? Comments or questions from the council? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 2 passes unanimously. All right, we have one more active agenda item, which is something other than a hullabaloo. Actually, this one's kind of fun, way more interesting than abatements and levies, at least in terms of procedurally. Is there a motion concerning historic landmark designation?
Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution granting historic landmark designation for 5408 Carpenter Street as presented.
Second.
Any comments or questions from the audience on this item? Comments or questions from the council? Well, we had a little conversation last time, and I'll just mention again that this program is one that has been going on for many years. There's information available on our website if you are interested for your home, and we would certainly encourage you to do so. And special thanks to those who take the time to put their homes into our historic preservation ordinance. So with that, Rosa, would you please call the roll on this one?
Yes. Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit,
Aye.
Commissioner Gilmartin,
Aye.
Commissioner Davenport,
Aye.
Commissioner Tully,
Aye.
Commissioner Glover,
Aye.
Mayor Barnett.
Aye, that 2 passes unanimously. We have a little plaque sort of thing, a certificate. Would you like to come down and get a photo? That would be awesome. That ends our active agenda tonight. So we're on to item 7, our first reading. This is the portion of the meeting where we continue to discuss or discuss things for the first time, but these are items on which we do not plan to take formal action tonight. For those who are looking at our agenda and the 16 or 20 or 30 items that seem to appear on it, those first set were, of course, grouped, and we've talked about those multiple times. This next set, too, has some groupings. We're going to go through each one individually, but please understand there's a couple of components. There are 14 items on our first reading. They really are 4 categories of work. The first one is village planning related. This has to do with our comprehensive plan. Second sort of set of items are 2024 budget implementation items. Once the village passes a budget, there are still actions required to implement that budget. Then there are some code and administrative rules, sort of cleanups and reorientation. We do those periodically as circumstances, typically state-driven, change around us. And then the last thing are a couple of items related to some planning in our local school district. So we'll take each one of those one at a time, and Dave, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. The first item on tonight's first reading agenda is a motion authorizing a contract with Halcyon Levine and Associates for the update to the comprehensive plan, to develop an environmental sustainability plan, to develop a downtown plan, a Fairview focus area streetscape plan, and update and enhance the bicycle and pedestrian plan. So just a little bit of work here. We're really proud of this agenda item, and we're going to take a few minutes to go through a lot of the components here, starting off with a recap of what we talked about in September of how we're approaching this. And it's my privilege to introduce our Director of Community Development, Stan Popovich, to give this. He and his team have worked diligently already, and I think it's really a sign of what's about to come here in the next year or so. Stan?
Thank you, Manager Fieldman. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Manager Fieldman noted, this project does include some very substantial projects, so we're excited to get going on through the priority action items from 23 to 25. Staff identified these 4 goals and objectives to be taken here on the screen. The first 2 we'll talk about a little bit is to advance or substantially complete or advance all 6 of these items by May of 2025, and to prepare a modern best practice-based comprehensive plan. The last time we updated the plan was in 2017, so this is what we're trying to do for a modern best practice post-COVID comprehensive plan. The traditional approach, what we've done in the past, is to do a comprehensive plan. We have usually an ad hoc committee, it goes through Planning Commission and Village Council, and then we develop these supporting plans. We did that in 2011 and again in 2017. The ad hoc committee is usually made up of different boards and commission members, Planning Commission for all the regulatory stuff, and Village Council ultimately for approval. So we're going to try an innovative approach with this project to achieve our goals and objectives, is to work concurrently on all of these projects at one time. We use the Village Council as a comprehensive planning committee, engage multiple boards and commissions, and engage multiple consultants to all complete this work or substantially completed in the next 18 months or so. The team that we've established is the Village Council, and then the boards and commissions include the ECC, Environmental Concerns Commission, Transportation Parking, Historic Preservation Design Review Board, and the Plan Commission. Staff liaisons will be from various departments in the village: Community Development, Public Works, Manager's Office, and the Legal Department. And then we want to engage consultants for the planning, urban design, environmental, and transportation. Under this model, really with the Comprehensive Plan Committee and the Village Council being one, with the Village Council serving in that role, there's going to be a lot of back and forth, so a lot of things moving up and down from the council to these other boards. Council will likely meet monthly on various topics that are moving forward, as shown in the schedule. The ECC and TAP and HPDB and Plan Commission will be, substantially reviewing these plans shown in the drawings as well, and in the slide as well. And then council will provide direction to these boards to move forward with as well. And so this will allow everybody to move forward in a quick manner. Again, this is just sort of the timeline that we're looking at for all of these projects. Challenges that we see coming up that we think we can address and move forward is the advisory board's availability and caseload. We still have day-to-day activities moving on. Conflicting recommendations, that's why we think it's really important to have one lead consultant that takes all this information in and makes sure that we're not having conflicting recommendations. Managing public engagement from multiple sources, and then just generally the complexity of doing all these projects at one time. So it's really going to require all the team from Village Council down the boards and commission staff and our planning consultants and other consultants to really perform at a high level of work and support this work moving forward. It also requires some flexibility. We have to accept some uncertainties in this innovative approach and a willingness to adjust some completion deadlines. So we are ready to provide that flexibility and do what it takes to get this project done. The village put out a request for proposals. We received 3 proposals. After thorough review and consideration, staff is recommending engaging Halcyon Levine for our large project. Halcyon Levine's proposal and subsequent conversations provided consistency with our innovative and concurrent approach. They have a really good understanding of our projects. They provide us with a very skilled consultant team for some of these more unique projects that are part of this comprehensive plan project. And they do have proven success with us for 2011 and 2017 comp plans. And they've engaged a very good consultant to lead us in a robust communication and community engagement profile as well, which we feel is very important. The team consists of Halcyon Levine, altogether Baxter & Woodman, Delta Institute, and Hitchcock Design Group. Halcyon Levine will be the lead for the project and the comprehensive plan update. Baxter & Woodman will work on the enhanced bike and pedestrian plan. Hitchcock Design will be doing the downtown and Fairview streetscape designs. Delta Institute will be doing the environmental sustainability plan, and altogether will manage the communications and public engagement efforts. We've talked about a really robust public engagement plan. You can see all the events here and various ideas and concepts that we can use that will be implemented on this project, including a project website, online mapping tool where people can go and provide their ideas and their comments. Stakeholder interviews, focus groups, kickoff and pop-up events. I think pop-up events are something new in the past 10 years, so it's very exciting to bring that here to Downers Grove. Some DIY workshop kits, so everybody's going to have some homework to do maybe on some evenings and doing these engagements with your friends and neighbors potentially. And then some, I think one of the very exciting things at the very end of this project is to have an executive summary story map. So a lot of these plans sometimes have sat on the shelves, not ours, because we use them on a daily basis in our department. But it's been very exciting, a very interactive sort of thing with our ArcGIS at the end of this to provide some executive summary of the comp plan. The deliverables, we'll start off with the updated comprehensive plan. It's going to include a vision statement and goals. That's something House E. Levine will be working with us on as well. An existing conditions analysis, which includes market and demographic profiles, transportation and mobility infrastructure, and all the items listed up there. Along with the comprehensive plan, it will include, like I said, a vision and land use framework, a discussion on focus areas, which we have in our current comprehensive plan, and then a housing and neighborhoods analysis, including a housing analysis. These three key items are the housing stock profile. That takes census tract data regarding the number of units in a structure, so that'll determine if it's a single family, if it's a duplex, if it's an apartment complex. Year built, housing tenure, which is really if it's owner or renter, size and number of bedrooms. A cost burden by tenure spatial analysis. A lot of big words here, but very, very understandable. So we're going to take a look at census tract cost burden rates by tenure, whether it's owner or renter, and it's represented on two maps talking about percentage of income used for housing. And then an assessment of household makeup versus housing unit size. So this really comes down to, again, census data regarding household size and makeup. So is it somebody living alone? Is it a married couple, no kids? Is it a family with children? Is it seniors in the house? And comparing it to the existing housing unit size, number of bedrooms and type of units. So this would potentially identify any mismatches between the housing stock that we currently have and the housing needs of people living in these units or living in the community. With regard, the other deliverables in the comprehensive plan include economic development, transportation, community facilities, and then really important things that are being sprinkled throughout our environmental sustainability and diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's something that has really changed in the planning profession in the past 5 to 10 years that we're excited to bring to our comprehensive plan. With regard to the environmental sustainability plan, we'll be using the Greenest Region Compact as a framework. We will be completing a greenhouse gas inventory as well. That'll be done towards the end of the project timeframe. The downtown streetscape design for both downtown and Fairview includes an existing conditions analysis, streetscape improvement plans. It also will encompass outdoor dining, looking for opportunities for that. The ultimate deliverable on this will be preliminary design plans and cost estimates. So we can see what we want our downtown to look like and estimates on how much it's going to cost. The enhanced bicycle and pedestrian plan, again, will include a visioning and guiding principles, document for us, an existing conditions analysis. Origin and destination analysis is really important to figure out where people are going and how to get them there. And an action plan for some strategies and recommendations moving forward as well. This is a really cool Gantt chart that House E. Levine has provided to us showing time frames. There's a more detailed one in the packet, but this really shows that they're aligning with our schedule to try to substantially advance or complete all the projects that we've identified tonight. So we are ready to get going. We're going to start in January of next year. I'm not going to spend much time at home because I'll be working on all these fun projects, so it'll be a good time. But we're going to substantially complete a lot of these things by May of 25. As you can see, just the sheer number of meetings, I think we counted 56 meetings identified in the comprehensive plan proposal. Lots of meetings with our boards and commissions, lots of meetings with Village Council to make sure of that. This does not include our meetings with public engagement, so there will be other opportunities for public engagement outside of these meetings, stakeholder group interviews, pop-up events, different ideas like that to get engagement from the community without having to come to Village Council or to a board and commission to engage as well. With regard to project costs, our fiscal year budget 24 includes $1 million. The contract in front of us tonight is just over $930,000. It includes a $44,000 contingency. This is almost 5,000 hours of consultant hours. So we're excited about that, to have this team work with us. And then costs will be incurred both over FY24 and FY25 as the project will run into 25. So in summary, we're very excited to recommend House of Levine to the Village Council. A very consistent, innovative approach with us. We worked with them before with proven success, and we're really excited about the robust communication and community engagement plan. Nick Davis with House of Levine is here tonight as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions. If I can't answer them, I'm sure Nick will be able to help us out. Thank you, Mayor, so much.
Thanks, Dan. Any comments or from the questions from the audience? Please come on up to the microphone.
Robin Triloff from Downers Grove. Just a quick question. Will a copy of Stan's excellent report be available publicly?
It's actually already available publicly. It's actually if you click on the agenda item on this and you go all the way to the very end, it's the last 35 or so pages of that document.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any others? Any council comments, questions? Martin, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank staff for clarifying a question that was raised with respect to the nature and scope of deliverables associated with Task 3B as in boy, the existing conditions analysis, and particularly the existing housing condition analysis. I think it's great that we're doing this, but just that there was clarification that because the word gap was used, that this is not actually a housing affordability study, nor an affordable housing plan, but it will produce data that can later be utilized as part of that analysis. But this itself is not that, just to manage expectations both up here and in the public. So thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mike?
Yeah, I was excited to see this. We've had a lot of great experience with Halcyon Levine in the past, not only with our comp plan, but when I was on the HPDRB, housing inventory, downtown design guidelines, things of this nature. So they're very familiar with us. Looks like they're bringing a strong team, especially like the community engagement focus that's being proposed, and noted too that it's almost entirely in person, which is, I'm just, reflecting on my Zoom days and that. Just so glad we're past all that, and because this is the most effective way to get it done. Good continuity with the previous comp plan. I think all the project understanding statements were spot on. Enhancing the downtown as well as Fairview, housing diversity, DEI, environmental sustainability. I liked in the project understanding statement, we understand the importance of establishing a consensus-based vision for the future and setting a clear direction for land use and development. And I really appreciated that. A few comments and maybe a few questions here. First, regarding the enhancing the downtown and streetscape. So the streetscape plan should properly organize the needs of the diverse array of users and establish a vision for implementing necessary improvements. And I'd like to see some emphasis on safety in all that as well, so that we don't miss that. So yes, some fun words in this, right? Spatial analysis. Embedded into place-based recommendations using GIS. I'd like to know more about that. So not necessarily right now, but yeah, right. Going forward. Also, it'd be nice to highlight the ways that that the public plays a pivotal role in shaping the design and policies of the places. That sounds right, sounds good. Just a little bit more on that, and a little more elaboration on the pop-up events for community engagement. Sounds really cool. The gamification, event gamification, that sounds pretty cool. We have the youth and civic engagement, right? So not missing out on our youth in their input in this too. We've heard so much about needing to get more input, get people engaged. How do we do that? And we've been asked to do more about that at several meetings, and this really seems to be a robust plan to get that done and get people engaged. That interactive project website is included in all this. I can't remember if that got highlighted in the presentation tonight or not, but that's going to be really key in the connection to our linking back and forth with our website. Really terrific. I was going to hit on the housing condition analysis, but Commissioner Tully tackled that one. Let's see here. I didn't think that the proposal really captured that sort of, that the council was acting as the comprehensive planning committee, and it seemed like it was proposing more of a streamlined first community engagement, then we're doing things with the plan commission, then we're bringing things to the council, and that's not really how we're going to be doing this, but that's what was in the proposal. So just making sure that they're fully understanding what we're looking for there. And the bike and ped plan, item 2F, county routes, county riding routes, or the DuPage County Trail System along 59th Street, I'm thinking, and other places, connecting that to adjacent communities. And I like the fact that that was highlighted in this, because it's going to be so difficult, I think, for us to be thinking about a bike and multi-purpose trail system in Downers Grove that's just us. So much has already been done on a perimeter. It's so important that whatever we do, it ties in with that. And so I've mentioned that previously, but really excited about that as well. There was a lot to go through here. I didn't get to read every single word, I confess, but I made it through most of it, and really excited about it. I think this is the right team to help us out. I really do. So that's it for me. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Mike.
Mayor, if I could, just real quick, Commissioner Davenport asked for a little bit more clarification on 3 or 4 items. We can address that in 2 steps. First, next week, we can give you just a little bit more information and just put that in the agenda materials. But then there's a broader opportunity and a deeper opportunity at the kickoff meeting, where Houseel and the team will verify the scope, sort of talk through, are we doing what the council expects, and sort of putting a fine tune on this. So we'll do both of those. We'll answer your questions next week in a preliminary fashion, and then when we really get into it, we'll dive into those.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Leslie?
No questions. Thrilled with how comprehensive this plan is, and particularly with regard to the public engagement and communication. Obviously, it's something we've talked about at length up here, and we all know that we can always do a better job. And so I'm really hopeful that some of these new aspects, or some of these things we haven't tried yet, will be able to kind of give us a little bit of a clue on how we can better engage the community. I know I've set up here, probably during long-range planning and even before, that I would really love to try to proactively kind of get at some of these issues that we know are going to be coming up on our plates. It's something that I personally think we could do a better job of, and so I'm really excited about those pop-up events, youth engagement, and some of these events where you don't have to come and speak at the podium, because that can be nerve-wracking. We'll actually have some events where we are going out into the community and really meeting people where they are. So I'm really hopeful that'll kind of get us a little bit better feedback than we get, rather than expecting folks to come to our meetings and speak up there. Obviously, I am thrilled about the environmental sustainability plan and the use of the GRC. Again, I know that Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus is working on some work there, but it'll be nice for us to kind of take a look at what exists out there already and see what's right for the village of Downers Grove. I've been hopeful that we could get something like that done since 2019, and it's really thrilling to finally see such an extensive plan in action here. I was also happy to see within the bike and pedestrian plan, talking a little bit more about some of the gap analysis, equity, ensuring that we have, routes throughout the village and maybe some areas that don't have as much access to transportation. So really happy with the thoughtfulness taken to all of these specific plans. Really thrilled to get this kicked off, and ready to put in a lot more hours of work, I know, with council, but, we've been waiting on this and excited to get it started. So thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank you. Chris?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to repeat what's been said. I would echo a lot of the comments Commissioner Davenport, Commissioner Sadowski has mentioned already. I thought the approach laid out was fantastic. I think one of the things that was interesting to me was this is the team that did our 2017 plan, did our bike and ped plan. And when I first read those, as I became more interested in Village Works, I was supremely impressed with that work, even back then. So to know that team is what I would see going to carry this forward into our next 40 years is extremely exciting for me. A couple more things. Just looking at the bios of everyone and seeing how much environmental sustainability is on those bios was very encouraging. No surprise, because I know how important that is to a lot of communities, but that was great to see. I think we even said environmental sustainability is throughout all of these projects, and that's just great to see. Clearly, it's interesting, even just a few weeks ago, we're talking about community engagement and communication and how we can improve, and a few weeks later, this lands on our desks and has a full scope, I would think, of both, I would say, more traditional means by getting out in the community, but also some of the digital means of surveying and social maps and obviously the project website. Extremely critical that we look at lots of different ways to communicate with our residents, because while I may be more interested in something that's more technology-based, a website or a social map where I can make comments, I'm not everybody, I don't represent everybody. And so having different ways to communicate this and include, I've been trying to talk about surveys for a while. I'm super excited to see that as a part of this. The bike and ped plan approach seems very, I think, well thought out. I'm excited to see the vision. It's been a couple years for me. The bike and ped has been a big, a very important thing for me to see move through, and I'm just looking at what is being proposed in this approach feels very comprehensive. It feels like it's including the community, but really it's that vision of what we can and can't do. We know we have restrictions, we know we have limitations, but it's been how many years since we did the last one? 10? What are new ways that we can be looking at this, and just obviously excited about that. I just think overall this has a lot of components of visioning, and I think that's a really important thing. We have tons of work ahead of us, and it's going to be extremely important that the community understands what we're doing. They see down the road what we're trying to achieve in order to help us, and when we make decisions, see why we're making those types of decisions. Because I can tell you right now, with all of this work to be done, there are going to be some tough decisions we're going to have to make if we want to commit to this. And I think what helps move that along is strong vision, strong commitment to the end goal. And I think we'll all be, the community will be better for it. So I intend to support this recommendation, and I look forward to working with that group should we all decide that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Chris. Anyone else? Greg?
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry to be the late entrant here. I, too, am in support of the proposal. I'm going to keep my comments pretty brief. First off, I love all of the community engagement that's proposed, both the breadth and the depth of it. One of my concerns from the beginning has been that the council is going to act as the comp plan committee, and the potential for a feedback loop that creates. And so the communication portions of it were particularly important to me. And I want to underline, too, whether it's bike and ped or environmental sustainability or what the other pieces of this, that we need to be nimble throughout all of this, because we're going to be creating additional feedback and making decisions along the way that are going to impact a lot of these things, including potentially discussing some things tonight and voting on them next week. And I think it's important that we be able to capture all of that as part of the process as well, because what might be the vision today might not be 7 days from now, and that unfortunately things can change that quickly. But I think we've got the right team here. I'm looking forward to working with everybody and putting together a great product. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks. Anyone else? I'm not going to repeat anything anyone said. I'm going to remind the public that we are starting down a process that we went down a road in 2011, and that we went down again in 2017, so that math would suggest we're right about on track for doing that same thing. This is a visioning exercise. It is a public engagement exercise. It was in 11, it was in 17, it will be this time. As with anything that you might suspect, whether it's the remote control in your house or the phone in your pocket, the world changes, and that's why we do this work. It is important that we continue to do it, and we do it periodically. So, visioning exercise indeed, that is what it is. It's not a plan, it's a development of a plan, and it's going to take input from the council, work from our colleagues, work from our consultants, and work from the public. So we hope you all will join us along the way. That's it. Dave?
Items B through E are next on our first reading agenda. They are budget implementation items. These are items that actually were talked about in the context of the multi-meeting FY24 budget review and approval process. Items F and G are the housekeeping items related to going into a new year with the new budget. All the council have been briefed on this on their Monday calls, and we are here to answer any questions that the council may have.
Thanks, Dave. If anyone from the audience has read through any of these and has any questions or comments, please come on down to the podium. We're looking at a list here of B through G on the printed agenda, or on the online agenda. About my colleagues, council comments or questions on these? Okay, we'll just continue to move on.
Okay. Items H, I, J, and K are all related to District 58 expansion and remodel of Herrick Middle School. Here to present background information on this item, I'll welcome back to the podium our CD Director, Stan Popovich.
Thank you, Manager Fieldman. Good evening again, Mayor and council members. We've got a few items to talk about with Herrick Middle School as a zoning map amendment, institutional master plan, and right-of-way vacation and intergovernmental agreements. As you know, the Herrick Middle School is located just a little bit west of North High School and a little bit south of Ogden Avenue. District 58 is proposing to move 6th grade students into both of the middle schools, Herrick and O'Neill, and as part of that is necessitating improvements to both of those middle schools. The campus outlined here consists of the existing school, parking lot, drive aisles, some sidewalks, and green space. The uniquely shaped parcel has frontage along both Linscott, Saratoga, Grant, and Middow. The property, like shown here from an old plat, contains multiple parcels, and outlined here in yellow are 3 right-of-ways that have not been vacated in the past. The first 2 are on the north property line along Middow and Linscott. Those are currently used by the school district, but have never been vacated. The oddly shaped right-of-way is in the old right-of-way from Linscott Avenue. It includes an old paved surface and some vegetation. This area will be vacated principally vacated the school, and you can see a little bit on the southwest corner. That'll be vacated to the neighbor of the parcel immediately to the west of this area. When we talk about an institutional master plan, development within 150 feet of a residential zoning district must adhere to those residential zoning regulations. So that's shown here in the red color. Within the green, I think it's sort of green, and it showed up a lot better on my screen as green, maybe a lime green. That's the interior area, and those regulations are determined based on the plan tonight and what that proposal would be. Looking at this slide, we can see the existing school is in blue. The additions are shown here in orange, and then this is the new layout that I'll be going over. We've got a 3D rendering that White and Company was able to provide for us. Ogden Avenue is generally to the upper left. It's not immediately adjacent to the school in Saratoga. There's that big lawn area, so it's a little bit up to the upper right-hand side. The first addition here is a gym and a storm shelter addition. There's a classroom addition, again, on the east side of the building, an entrance addition, some work and addition onto the cafeteria. There's a kitchen addition over this area that requires relief because that is within the setbacks. And then, again, there's a skylight addition in the center of the building that requires relief because some of that portion of that building is within the transitional area there. When we look at the school itself, We have a couple of new parking lots. The one on the west side of the property will be a new parking lot, expanded parking for day-to-day activities and evening activities as well. And then we have a new parking lot in the northeast corner during the day that will be principally for bus pickup and drop-off. And then at night, that would be parking for events at the school. When we look at circulation, there's a drop-off lane here that'll run north on Middow and extend through the site with an option to continue north to Ogden in order to loop back and around to come out Middow. And then one of the big additions is a looped drive off of Saratoga for additional parent or guardian drop-off to the school at this location as well. And as I noted earlier, the buses will come in and out of Saratoga and loop around this parking lot for drop-off and pick-up. And then for extracurricular activities, there's this open parking lot for those people visiting the school. Pedestrian circulation, we've got a lot of sidewalks, new sidewalks on this property. The existing sidewalk along Middow, that main entrance will be redone with the new parking lot layout. We've got sidewalks all along the loop on the north side of the property, and where we're going to vacate the alley where the proposed vacation is, there's a sidewalk connection there down to Grant and down Linscott, which will be helpful to the community as well. And then important, because a lot of kids ride bikes, there's two large bike rack areas provided for anybody that wants to bike to school as well. With regard to stormwater is going to be addressed by providing the small sort of rectangles are going to be dry wells that'll provide some post-construction best management practices. And then there's a large underground detention system that will be installed underneath the grass field just to the west of Saratoga in between the school there. The village currently has a 6-inch water main that is located in this general area that is in need of replacement, with the school district making improvements to the parking lot above the main. The time to replace that main is now. District 58 will be replacing the main as part of this project. It'll be a new 8-inch main. An intergovernmental agreement has been prepared whereby D58 would install the water main, but then the village would reimburse the district for the construction of this water main, so we don't have to worry about an older water main in this area. With regard to the comprehensive plan, it's identified the site as institutional public. It recommends the village support operations. We want to minimize impact on residential and continue to maintain high-quality schools and facilities. Plan Commission considered this petition at the November 6th meeting and found that the standards for zoning map amendment and institutional master plan that were met, and the right-of-way vacation policy 2003-58 is for your consideration tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions. We also have representatives from District 58 and White here as well, if you have any questions for them. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Stan. Any comments or questions from the audience? Comments or questions from the council? Martin?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to point out that we were talking earlier about comprehensive facilities planning and things that have been in the works for a long time. This has been in the works for a long time. District 58 has been working very hard on this and has held countless community meetings talking about the need for the expanded school buildings, that one of which we just looked at, and also how they can be better improved and making it a 6, 7, and 8 environment as opposed to what it's been previously. So I know there's been a lot of community input and a good example of community engagement to bring it to this point. So I know that Dr. Russell and others are very happy to be here at this moment, since this has started many, many years ago, and a lot of folks have been involved. Prior councils have been involved in this as members of the community and otherwise, so glad to see what we can do to facilitate the next step of this process, because it is very important to our community that we have high-quality schools. It impacts our whole community. It impacts a lot of things that we do, so to the extent that we can work together to achieve that vision and your vision, all the better. So I'll say that just as a general overview comment. I don't have any questions or concerns about what's been proposed. We may have a couple things on the technical zoning pieces a little bit later, but not at the moment. But I do want to thank both our staff and District 58 staff for the opportunity to do the bundling, because it's always very important that when we are tearing up large segments of the community that we also take care of what lies beneath all at once, rather than having to do it again later with more time, burden, and cost. So thank you for addressing the water main as part of this project, and that's a heck of a stormwater vault that's going in there. That's certainly going to help the area. So once again, an opportunity as things are redeveloped and as things are upgraded, that we also upgrade other elements, including stormwater, which is very important. And candidly, that's the only time you really can do something on this scale is when you're doing a project of this scale. So it's the opportunity is greatly appreciated. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Martin. Anyone else? Bruce?
Thank you, Mayor. I too look forward to supporting this, but I did have a couple of questions. In terms of the zoning, is there an intention to consolidate these lots, or will they remain the lots that they are now?
They would be consolidated administratively.
One lot, okay. And then the second question I have is in regards to the east traffic circle. I know Saratoga also shares with the high school, and I just wonder what thoughts or plans in terms of traffic flow during the arrival times and departure times of both those schools. I happen to know someone who has a kid at Herrick and a kid at North and does both pickups sometimes, so I'm just curious how that's going to be addressed.
I think I'd like to turn over to
Yeah.
Dr. Russell maybe, and
Great.
he can address that a little bit.
Thank you for having us here on behalf of our Board of Education. We really appreciate just the partnership with the Bills throughout this process is something that we value and we really appreciate. Obviously, this site has one of the most unique challenges when it comes to traffic. You've got Downers Grove North, right to the east, and you've got Pierce Downer right to the west, and you've got Ogden Avenue right to the north. So it does present a lot of challenges. So when we were considering what are we going to do about traffic, one of the most fundamental questions that we had to answer was how are we going to separate our school buses from our parent drop-off? And that is why you see that addition of that parking lot on the northeast side. That will be only for buses during the day, and once the evening events begin, the buses will obviously be gone, and that will become our event parking lot for sports, activities, and then to be utilized by the Park District and other renters on the weekend. We've also spoken with District 99. It's an opportunity for them to use that parking lot for high school football games and other large events at the high school. We like to share our lots as much as we can for big events. In terms of the traffic loop, one of the other things that we really needed to address from community feedback, and just if you've been around Herrick, which I know you have, Chris, we have to get traffic out of the neighborhood, and what we did not want to create is another mid-aw on Linscott. And so that is the idea of this traffic loop off of Saratoga. Why off of Saratoga? Well, it just makes sense because when you're pushing cars in and out, you're pushing them toward the high school and not toward the residents. And so that was very important, especially to our neighbors on Linscott to the south. One of the nice things that we do have is staggered start times between the elementary, the middle school, and the high school. The lot that the traffic loop is coming into Downers Grove North is not their main lot. The main lot is off of Main Street just east of Main. And so we believe with the staggered times and with that area, Downers Grove North, primarily being used for busing in the morning, we certainly understand that there will be competing traffic, but when we looked at the traffic study, we felt this was the best way to do that, to alleviate creating a bigger problem with the solution. And so for all those reasons, that's why we propose that traffic loop, and again, really to help our neighbors out on Linscott Avenue.
Do you intend to use both loops?
Yeah, we intend to use both loops, both for pickup and arrival.
Okay.
Arrival is a little bit easier for the most part because not everybody comes at the same time, except for that, 8:20 to 8:30 time where everybody's trying to get the ball game at the same time. It does cause some problems, but what we are really shooting for is our students who are coming from the Highland attendance area, coming from the Leicester attendance area, even some of the Whittier attendance area, or Whittier, to really utilize the east parking loop. People coming from the Puffer area, the Pierce Downer area, to utilize the one off of Mid-Aw. So we wanted to break that in half. With the extra grade coming over, we're anticipating anywhere from 250 to 300 more students a year. So Herrick right now is about 650 students. When this is all said and done, it will be anywhere from 850 to 900 students. And so with the increased traffic, that's why we felt very strongly that we needed an additional parking loop. We tried to save as much green space as possible, not only for the environment, but also for our kids when they're out, at athletics. We are also in conversations with District 99 when they don't utilize their turf field. We are good neighbors with them, and we want to go over and utilize that when they're not using it for physical education.
Thank you.
I'll just add, District 58, 68, and 99 all have a shared contract with their busing company, too. So there's good coordination on the busing. I think that helps as well.
Sure.
Yeah, it does save taxpayers money. It also ensures that we can't start at the same time, which will help with traffic. Because what you see primarily with 99 and 68 is the buses are paired. So they will go to the high school first, and then they will do the District 68 routes and a few of the 58 routes. Where ours, because we're larger than District 68, we have our own buses that are then paired with some of our elementary routes and things like that.
Got it. Cool.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Didn't mean to throw my pen. I also am a strong supporter of this and love to see this all come to fruition. It's been a long time in the making, and fantastic community engagement through that process as well. And of course, District 58 is going to be a very close partner of ours going forward in our new Civic Center, too. So really happy to support them in this.
Martin?
I said I'd come back to it. Thank you, Mayor. Because there is a request for a zoning map amendment here, I would be remiss if I didn't say that I think all criteria, all 7 criteria under 28, 12030 little I for review and approval criteria for a zoning map amendment have clearly been met, in my opinion. And this is also consistent with the institutional master plan as well as our right-of-way vacation policy, not that those are particularly controversial. And the only other thing I'll mention is, depending on your construction schedule, we may be taking up the topic of our sign ordinance at some point in time. So when you get to the sign part of your plan, then maybe we'll talk again.
I like it.
Who invited him? I hope
It's on the list, Mayor.
It is.
Anyone else?
No.
I just want to pick up a little bit on what some of my colleagues have said about long-range planning and how that happens at the schools as well as the village, and we try to interact together on that front. This, Chris asked about rezoning. This INP zoning classification was done, I don't remember, 10 years ago-ish, something like that, by the council specifically to help facilitate some of these kinds of master plans, site master plans. What you see here, where an institution of some kind is built over a bunch of residential lots, that is in fact true in many places in town. So recognizing that years ago, the village created a new zoning classification to allow for some of these kinds of developments and help facilitate them. Recognizing that institutions in particular had site uses that maybe didn't comport exactly with the underlying residential zoning. So there is a lot of planning that goes on all the time, and it's most fun when we actually get to see it come into fruition. So thank you, 58, for being good partners in all this, and I'm looking forward to supporting this as well.
The next items are item L and M. It is the same type of discussion, this time for O'Neill Middle School. Stan.
Thank you, Manager Philman. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Zoning map amendment and institutional master plan for O'Neill Middle School. O'Neill is located at the southwest corner of Blodgett and 59th Street. The large parcel that O'Neill sits on also includes Fairmount Elementary School on the south. The rezoning request is for the whole parcel. The master plan we're talking about tonight is for O'Neill Middle School on the north half of the parcel, shown within the circle here. The parcel consists of 2 of the schools, some ball fields, some playgrounds, some parking lots, and some sidewalks connections to the public sidewalk system. Again, we talked about transitional areas and interior areas, so that's shown throughout for here the parcel, for the entire parcel. When we look at O'Neill, again, the existing school is in blue. White areas are depicted for pavement or parking areas, green for open space, and then the proposed building additions shown here again in orange. Take a look here. We got Fairmount Avenue to the lower right and 59th Street to the lower left. So we're sort of looking southeast. The first addition is an entrance addition at the main entrance to the school. A gym, storm shelter addition, a kitchen addition, and then a classroom addition. In this case, all of the proposed improvements and the additions meet the zoning requirements, so there's no relief requested for any of these items. With regard to site improvements, there's a new connection out to Blodgett Avenue that would connect the parking lot from Fairmount and then a drive aisle down to Blodgett. There's an expanded lay-by lane on 59th Street and an expanded parking lot on the south side of the building as well. When we look at drop-offs for students and pickups for students, they'll be occurring by coming down Fairmount Avenue and then looping around the parking lot to drop off your students on the south side of the building there. Morning drop-offs for buses will be also using this Blodgett Avenue connection. So since the buses come at different times, they won't necessarily be stacking. They'll be coming in, dropping off, and then moving on to their next routes. So they'll be using this connection to Blodgett Avenue. When we have an afternoon pickup, some of the buses will still be using the Blodgett Avenue connection, and then some of them will still be using the lay-by lane on 59th Street that has been expanded to provide that. And this is principally because in the evenings, after school, all the buses leave at the same time, whereas in the morning, buses come after they pick up the children, and so it's not all at the same time. With regard to pedestrian connections, again, we're connecting to Blodgett through the new drive lane there, connections out to the Fairmount Avenue sidewalk, and then based on Plan Commission discussions at their meeting, there's a sidewalk connection now shown down to the walking path that goes south of the YMCA and O'Neill Middle School there as well. And similar to Herrick, there are 2 bike rack areas for students riding to school or anybody visiting these areas as well. With regard to stormwater, the existing basin that's immediately east of the building will be reconfigured, and a new underground detention vault will be provided for underneath the south parking lot. Comp plan, again, like we talked about, institutional public support the operations and improvements, minimize impacts, and maintain our high-quality schools and facilities. Plan Commission considered their petition at the November 6th meeting and found the standards for rezoning and institutional master plan were met. I'm happy to answer any questions, and District 58 and White are here as well tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Dan. Anybody from the audience want to comment on this plan?
Yeah, good evening. Philip Bolton. I'm a resident on Washington Street in Downers Grove. Mayor, Council and staff, I'm here tonight because I have concerns about this plan. The first concern I have is the process that you went through to get to this point. The whole plan for this and Herrick actually are almost 500 pages in length, and they were released to the committee just days before the meeting, let alone would they have time to read it and understand it and have excuse me, and have questions answered. The public also would not have had a lot of time to digest and communicate and understand what's in those very detailed reports. So I think it was a little bit rushed that the information was only available so soon before the meeting, and then, you know, there was not like a first reading. It was just basically passed on the first discussion. I think it was pretty hard personally to see that everyone had time to really digest that information. There's a lot in those reports. They're very detailed. So I think also that there could be some improvements to be made. You could make those meetings available online. Could also make the original submissions that people make to the Planning Commission available as they are submitted. I got pushback from the village that these were only in draft form, so they were not available, and I was asked to wait until they were released just days before the meeting, and I didn't find that acceptable. So I think that's an improvement that could be made to the process, and one that would give more transparency and time for the community to digest the information. But really, my concerns are with the specific plan of O'Neill. I'm a resident near O'Neill. I've had kids actually at both the Fairmount and O'Neill schools, and I think that you know, this is a large spend and also a spend that is being made for a long time. So this building will be there for a long time. Whatever we do now will have long-term impacts on the local residents and the students that attend the school. And I think that we need to do the right thing to make sure that the residents aren't inconvenienced with the traffic flows, and also the neighbouring YMCA, and also that the highest level of safety is achieved for the students. And I see that there has been a lot of rigour at Herrick to get the buses off the road and to make sure that the safety of the children is paramount, but I didn't see that same rigour for O'Neill. And that was evident in the June 12th meeting at the District 58, where there was about a 10-minute discussion about that point, but there was nothing about O'Neill. And in fact, the builder for the school also stated that it's safer to move the buses off the road. So I would like you to consider that this plan is not reaching the safety performance that we expect as a community, and it's not reaching the performance of the road availability for the local residents. Really, the real driver for me coming tonight was a day where I sat waiting for my daughter, and I looked south on Fairmount, and I was on the north side of 59th, and I saw a guy come to that intersection. He was waiting for the buses, and it's very frustrating if you're in a hurry. And he'd had enough. He floored it, turned right and blasted straight past those buses. And I was really shocked, and I was scared, because the thing is, those kids can't see that car coming around the corner, and that car can't see the kids. And when you put 12 buses on that street, it becomes even worse. Now today I was there, and I saw even a staff member on the street trying to keep things organised and direct traffic. Well, I ask, is that really sustainable that the district has to have a staff member on the street? What if the staff member is injured on doing that activity? Is the village then also liable for any injuries that would occur when they are saying that this plan is safe enough? These are things that you need to consider, and I think you really need to take a good look at that report, because I saw some shortcomings that I'd like to email to you. But one specific one is about the foot traffic on the intersection of 59th and Fairview. There's a lot of cars parking on, Fairmount, not Fairview. There's a lot of cars parking on Fairmount because it's convenient, and there's not a lot of spaces available in the rear parking. The plan only gives one extra parking space. You go from 110 to 111 parking spaces. It's not enough. You're going to have 50% more cars coming in the afternoon. So what people do is they park there, and that attracts the kids to cross the road. Best practice is to have the kids not crossing the road at all. No kid should have to be picked up by crossing the road. That should be the goal. This plan also means that kids are intermingling with buses. Out the back of the school, it's actually today normal for the buses to route around the existing car park and drop there for sports, for example. They drop at that back door. They don't need that extra road today. And if you say just for drop-off, then there would be no need for that extra road behind there, and that cuts the green space in two, and it's going to be a 14-foot wide road. Where are the flag football teams going to play their flag football there now? That's exactly where they play. What about the kids that come to school along that sidewalk? There's only one sidewalk, it's on that side. Will the village ensure that that road is also free from ice and snow during winter? It's already icy on that sidewalk. And also, what happens when the buses come in the afternoon? Parents are queuing on Blodgett to wait for their kids from Fairview. The buses, yeah, they have staggered times, but the buses are there like 15 minutes before. So the buses arrive exactly the time when the kids are getting picked up. Also, you're going to take some spaces out of that parking, which is kind of limiting on Blodgett. You only have Blodgett Street really on that side of the school to park on. And you're going to take out 14 feet plus each side of the street, and that's going to impact 4 or 5 parking spaces. It's already a mess on Blodgett. Please consider all these points, and I ask you to go down there on a wintry afternoon when people are picking up their kids. This traffic study was done on a beautiful spring day. Look into these details, please. This needs to go back to the drawing board. This is not right. We got to do it right. Child safety and being a good neighbour are priorities. Please take another look at the O'Neill plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? This item. Okay. Comment, Council, Leslie.
Yeah, I have to echo that. I have serious concerns with the O'Neill Middle School plan. No surprise, I am in the Fairmount neighborhood as well, so I pick up my daughter almost every day. I can say that I have traveled there at pickup time on a nasty day. I happened to be chaperoning my daughter's Halloween party, and I think we all remember what Halloween was like this year. And I will say that Blodgett was a complete mess. I am not interested in keeping the buses on the street. I would love to see a different plan where that's not the case. You know, I took some notes regarding Herrick where it said we want to keep the traffic out of the neighborhoods and keep it away from the residents, and we are not doing that here. So I have real concerns with impacting the neighbors for that period of time. You know, it's easy in a traffic study to say that it's only about 15 to 20 minutes, but I think anybody who experiences that realizes that it's much more than that. You know, we got a lot of expansions with regard to parking lots and drop-off at Herrick, you know, really trying to emphasize keeping things out of the neighborhood and keeping people safe. And I just do not see the same level of safety here at O'Neill Middle School that I saw at the Herrick Middle School plan. So I am much more interested in seeing what we can do in terms of separating the drop-offs with cars from the buses and separating that from the neighborhood, the walkers, the bike riders. You know, one day I would love it if my daughter could ride her bike, and I know some of my neighbors, I live in Deer Creek, so I'm across Fairview, but, you know, I know some of our neighbors have kids that ride their bikes to school, and I have real safety concerns with regard to this plan, keeping the buses there, having the variety of buses coming through that middle area in the morning, and then having buses on 59th Street in the afternoon, combining some of that with the cars. I have real safety concerns with the O'Neill plan. Thanks.
Thank you. Others? Martin?
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, I appreciate the comments from neighbors who live in the area, and obviously safety is very important. I was just thinking about where this should be addressed in the two motions that are before us, because I clearly would support a plan that provides for the most reasonable safety possible. That goes without saying. But I'm going to give some thought to where it plugs into the two requests that are before us. One, which is a zoning amendment, and the other one is, and I'll get to that one in a minute, but I'm not sure it falls under 2812-0301 or any of those criteria. I'm going to give some thought to that. It's like, where is the best place to reduce that? Not so sure I agree with that. And some of them aren't even applicable. Maybe most of this is an extension of existing zoning and existing use. It's certainly consistent with the comprehensive plan, but let me think about it. Because it's one thing to say those things, and they're very important. It's another thing to make sure that they align with the specific request in the ordinance before us. It is a land use issue after all. So I'll noodle on it.
We've heard a couple of concerns, and it would be nice if we got some responses between now and next week, sooner rather than later, as to, you know, either alternatives or alternatives that were considered and why they weren't presented. I think that would be worth hearing about, hearing more detail.
We'll work with District 58 and get additional information by next week.
Thank you.
Okay, and additional commentary on Martin's question, too, would be appropriate.
Will do.
Because there still may be slicing and dicing here.
Okay. And that leads us to the last item on tonight's agenda, which is, it shows up as amending certain traffic controls, parking, and speed provisions. This is commonly referred to as Neighborhood Traffic Study Number 9, and it includes the area in which O'Neill is located. Director of Engineering Scott Vasco is making his way up to make the presentation. We talked earlier tonight about vision and implementing council's vision. You'll see in Scott's presentation that we get to some trade-offs and a staff recommendation and a TAP recommendation as it relates to parking and bicycle affordances. It's important to note that the reason staff is recommending bike lanes on both 59th Street and Fairmount is based on council discussion earlier this summer, where the council talked when we were scoping out the enhanced bike and ped plan putting us on a pedestrian-first type of vision. So that's a little bit of background that will make much more sense when Director Vasco makes his presentation. Scott.
Thanks, Manager Fieldman. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we're going to do a presentation on neighborhood traffic study number 9. So the purpose of study number 9 was to analyze existing transportation operations in regards to roadway traffic volume, speeds, intersection traffic control, pedestrian and bicycle safety in the neighborhood. We also did a comprehensive review to establish consistency within the neighborhood and mitigate transportation issues. So transportation, or neighborhood traffic study 9 is bounded by 55th Street to the north, Main Street to the west, Fairview and the village limits to the east, and 63rd Street to the south. So the first thing we did is we took an inventory of the existing conditions in this neighborhood. This included performing extensive field investigations and observations of the neighborhood. We conducted daily traffic and speed surveys at 27 locations. We conducted vehicle, pedestrian, bicycle counts at 7 intersections. We also collected various traffic-related data and crash data for the neighborhood. Some of the issues and concerns we wanted to look at were intersection traffic control, pedestrian and bike safety, roadway traffic volumes, and vehicle speeds within the neighborhood. And we'll go through a couple of the recommendations that we have based on the report. So one of the first preliminary recommendations is changing some of the number of intersections that are currently yield control or no stop control or two-way stop control to an all-way stop control. That will increase these intersections from 4 to 8. And TAP went ahead and recommended the approval of these changes 6-0 at the last TAP meeting. Our next preliminary recommendation for the area is changing the speed limit and signage modifications. And one of those is reducing the speed limit on 59th from 30 to 25, and actually 59th Street to the west of Main Street as well as to the east of Fairview is already currently 25 miles an hour. Another recommendation is to install 20-mile-an-hour speed limit signs southbound on Fairmount, just north of 59th, and installing new speed limit signs and adding yellow borders to existing speed limit signs throughout the neighborhood. This was also approved 6-0 at the last TAP Commission meeting. So those are our two of our ordinance changes. The next thing we did for traffic study number 9 is we looked at some 59th Street alternative designs. We investigated 4 different types of designs for 59th Street to make it more bike and ped friendly. These alternatives were developed with a mind of slowing and calming traffic and trying to enhance transportation modes on 59th. Just a little bit of background on 59th. The existing conditions out there right now are 34-foot cross-section with 2 17-foot vehicle lanes, parking on both sides of the streets, separate turn lanes at Main Street, Fairmount, and Fairview, and it's also a signed bike route as part of the Southwest DuPage Regional Trail. So now I'm going to go ahead and go through the 4 alternatives that staff and the consultants had put forward. So our alternative A is on-street parking on both sides of 59th Street and a shared bike lane. So we would do share roads and then parking on both sides. Alternative B consists of on-street parking on both sides of 59th, shared bike lanes again as well, but eliminating the left turn lanes at Fairmount. We would keep the ones at Main, we would keep the ones at Fairview, we would remove the ones at Fairmount. Alternative C included no parking on 59th Street and doing buffered bike lanes on either side with through lanes, both east and west. And then alternative D included no parking as well with buffered bike lanes and the removal of the turn lanes again at Fairmount, keeping them at Fairview and at Main Street. Those 4 alternatives were given to TAP at the TAP meeting. Up here is a summary of the 4 alternatives. TAP recommended alternative B by a 5-to-1 vote, which includes on-street parking on both sides, shared bike lanes, and elimination of the left turn lanes on Fairmount. The elimination of the turn lanes on Fairmount was also consistent with District 58's recommendation to remove the turn lanes there as well. Next, we looked at a couple alternatives for calming traffic and alternate modes of transportation on Fairmount from 59th to 55th Street. The existing conditions of Fairmount consist of a 28-foot cross section, 2 14-foot lanes, parking on both sides, and a signed bike route. This one's a little bit narrower than 59th Street. So we came up with 4 different alternatives that I'll go through now. Alternative A includes on-street parking on both sides of Fairmount and shared bike lanes. Again, we would do sharrows up and down, edge line, parking on both sides. Alternative B includes on-street parking on both sides of Fairmount, shared bike lanes, and we would do a median landscape meeting near Patriots Park, which would help with slowing down traffic. Alternative C includes no on-street parking on both sides of Fairmount and bike lanes on either side. And then alternative D is on-street parking on one side of the street and shared bike lanes north and south on Fairmount with sharrows again. Here's a summary of the 4 alternatives for Fairmount. At the TAP Commission meeting, alternative D was recommended by a 4-2 vote from TAP, which includes on-street parking on one side of the street and a shared bike lane for the rest of the road. And with that, I will open it up to questions right now.
I'll just add to tie in my introductory comments, the staff recommendations that still stand today are for the buffered bike lanes on both segments, both on 59th Street and on Fairmount. So you have a rare occasion where you have the staff recommendation differing from the advisory board at TAP. And that's where we're looking for your directions tonight, Council, or in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thanks, Scott. Any comments, questions from the audience on this item?
Since I'm here. Yeah, with this traffic study, I have been following a little bit the other traffic studies, and I know there's been some other residents also raise this concern, but I'm concerned that there's too many stop signs. Stop is becoming the new yield sign, and I think that a lot of people are becoming complacent with stop signs because there's too many of them. If you add more, it's just adding to that. Plus, you add more pollution, you add more noise. It's not just necessarily going to be good for the residents around those stop signs. You see online a lot of people talking about people blasting through stop signs. Same with the speed limits. I think that the speed study was fairly conclusive that there was 1 or 2 trouble spots, but by and large, actually I was surprised personally, the speed limits are being held. So I don't really know why, especially with no accident data to back it up, why would we want to have more stop signs and lower speeds? I think you need to throw in a little bit of common sense there. You all drive around our neighbourhoods. I would ask you to do what I did. There was one intersection near me that I traverse several times a day, normally in the peak times, and I started counting how many times I met that intersection and met another car coming from the side road. I stopped counting at 50, and I think I'm well over 100 and haven't seen one yet. So just do that and look at some common sense and say, well, how often do we really need to stop here? And that's the other thing with the traffic study. They don't actually count the the times that cars would meet at an intersection. So they can't really tell you how effective a stop sign would be, because stopping for no traffic is pointless. So I'd just like you to think about that and think about the negative impacts of stop signs as well. Thank you.
Others? Council comments, questions? Leslie, go ahead.
It's my neighborhood, so of course I have comments. In terms of the stop signs, I will actually say, so my neighborhood was included in this traffic study. We are a neighborhood who actually wanted stop signs, so we're maybe kind of against the grain here, but we have a lot of issues with folks not necessarily knowing where the right-of-way is or stopping. There are no stop signs in Deer Creek. It's a very strange neighborhood. I'm sure if you've driven through. Recently, we even had a car drive through our railing and flip upside down into the creek. And so if we can prevent any small thing from happening, even if it means slowing somebody down, even if they don't stop completely at the stop sign, to at least slow them down to a point where they're going to see that there are two spots for folks to drive. I think there's value in stop signs. It does add safety for pedestrians, for kids who are in the area. So in general, I am in favor of the stop signs. One question I did have is, was there a reason why going north on Cumner at 56th, it's strange because White Fawn going north, there's a stop sign at 56th, but there's not on Cumner, and I was just curious what the rationale was behind that. You don't have to answer that now.
We'll get that for you next week.
Yeah, but that was kind of the only spot where I saw it didn't quite match up with the rest of the stop signs in the neighborhood, but I can say that I know, a lot of folks in our area are really happy about the ones on 55th and some of those other areas, so, and Wilcox and a couple others. So I am in favor of adding stop signs. I think they will, if nothing else, slow people down and make them realize that there are people who live there and folks present. I feel like I say this all the time, but I saw the speeds on Fairview and it absolutely matched with my experience. They're outrageous that they're I think it was 38 was the 80th percentile. And I say this all the time, I cannot say the number of times that I've been going maybe 32 or 33 down Fairview and somebody passes me in the middle lane. So it is definitely, obviously, a concern that we have throughout the village. We don't, have a full traffic patrol on our police department anymore where we can monitor all of these areas, but any spots where we can potentially slow down traffic and make people realize that there are kids there is helpful. In terms of the bike plans, I am also in favor on 59th of alternative D of having buffered bike lanes. Again, having two schools and the YMCA there, I think there's huge benefit in getting kids to school safely. Again, I drive that area all the time and I very rarely see folks parked on Prairie. It's usually just work vehicles. I know I have canvassed in that neighborhood a ton, and I've never parked on Prairie, and I typically don't see too many cars on, I keep saying Prairie, 59th. It's akin to the Prairie moments on 59th. I always kind of park on some of those smaller side streets, so I am in favor of getting kids to and from where they're going a little bit safer with those buffered bike lanes. I know that the area going down Fairmount is a little bit more controversial, but it does connect some of those larger bike paths that we've discussed. It would be a way for folks to get north to south, so I am in favor of, again, safer bike lanes. If we don't have that, I would be a little bit more interested in the idea of maybe like a native plant median to reduce the pavement that we have, but again, we're talking about an enhanced bike and pedestrian safety plan, and so I am in favor of enhancing our bike and pedestrian, our bike routes where people can get to and from places safely. So I am in favor on 59th of alternative D and on Fairmount C of that bike, those buffered bike lanes. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Leslie certainly hit on the subjects we need to talk about. Anybody else got some additional input, Chris?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate Commissioner Sadowski Fugit's comments. I agree. I think it's important as it pertains to the bike lanes that we support alternative C. I think given their location to the schools, I think it's really important that we do commit to this pedestrian first, and I think this is a great first step. You mentioned Prairie. I think it was a Freudian slip because it was something we talked about a couple of years ago, where we had the opportunity to put dedicated bike lanes in. At the time, the council then decided to do Sharrows. I was amongst that council, and it's one of the decisions I regret. I think we had an opportunity there to commit further to dedicated lanes. There were some challenges there. It wasn't going to be a full lane, so without getting in all the details. But I think in that case, some more dedication there would have been better. So I fully support alternative C and the staff's recommendation, and I hope my fellow council members will do the same. In terms of the stop signs, I also feel strongly that it is important to change out yield signs. I think, as was mentioned, there are some yield sign no controls. I think we have to maintain some consistency. With all due respect, I do understand the idea of sort of the blindness to some of these added stop signs. I think those folks that are going to go through the stop signs are going to go through more stop signs. I think generally speaking, people are stopping. That's been my experience anyhow, other than some anecdotal issues. But so I support the additional stop signs. The speed limit, I think, is a fair adjustment as well. And I would, again, like to see these buffered lanes, alternative C. Thank you, Mayor.
Chris, C is on Fairmount, you mean D on
I'm sorry.
59th? Is that right?
Yes, I'm sorry, there's multiple.
But both,
I'm not interested in
both sections, you're looking for the buffered bike lanes.
Thank you, yes,
Got it.
exactly. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect.
Appreciate that clarification, Mayor.
Others, Mike?
Yeah, I too am in support of the signage and those proposals. With regards to the bike lanes, with Fairmount, I probably could support either C or D on that. So want to consider that some more. Along 59th, though, I am definitely in support of alternative D. I think there's some pretty good rationale behind not having parking along 59th Street between Main and Fairview. First of all, there's fewer houses along 59th Street because there are so many intersecting streets that provide, that locate houses along those intersecting streets and take them off of 59th in terms of having driveways. As well, plenty of opportunity to park on those side streets along 59th Street. Removing parking cars along 59th Street would create safer sight lines, particularly near O'Neill. Worried about kids walking between cars, that sort of thing. And, there's 4 times the traffic volume on 59th Street as compared to Fairmount, and according to the traffic study. And it also occurred to me that parked cars along 59th Street definitely impede traffic flow when the buses are loading, unloading along 59th Street. And in general, anecdotal information, I guess, but my kids all went to O'Neill, and I go to the Y quite frequently. I'm on 59th Street quite a bit, and seldom see cars parked on 59th Street. And I even went on Google Maps and just rode down the street, virtually, not a single car parked. Whereas when I went to Fairmount, there was a car parked there. So a little more sympathy to the folks there at Fairmount. And knowing that it's a designated county bike route, seems like this makes a lot of sense. And I will also say that I prefer, versus any of this, to have a multi-use trail off-street along 59th Street. Would be my preference. That's not an alternate here, but ultimately when we talk about safety, and that's, to me, that's the way to really get this done. But in the short term, alternate D is my preference there. Once again, along Fairmount, I'll ponder it some more. So that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else? Greg?
Thank you, Mayor. Like Commissioner Davenport, I'd be willing to entertain the Sharrow on Fairmount, but I think generally if you're going to have a bike lane, you ought to have a bike lane. So I like the idea of the separate striped bike lane. And I think there is some concern about the elimination of parking, and that's why we didn't do it on Prairie. The neighborhood came out and spoke out, and we listened. And that we've seen that with regard to Fairmount School and some of the changes that were proposed over there. We've seen that with regard to sidewalks in some places. So I think this is part of the nimbleness that has to come with part of our planning, is that we might end up with Sharrows where maybe we thought we were going to get a bike lane. We might end up with a bike lane where maybe we thought we might not. And so I think a lot of the community input that we're going to get over the period of the next 12 to 18 months is really going to be crucial. Frankly, I'm surprised we don't have more feedback on this tonight. I thought, given the response to TAP, that we might see more. But suffice to say, I am in favor of the staff recommendations, but I am willing to consider that Sharrow on Fairmount. With regard to the stop signs, I mean, these are no-brainers. An uncontrolled intersection is significantly more dangerous than a controlled intersection, at least of some type, and yield signs drive me crazy. Either you're going to come to a stop or you're not. And if you're the jerk that's not going to stop at a stop sign, it doesn't matter whether there's one or whether there's 100 of them. You're just not going to stop. And frankly, I hope you run into one of the police officers, and that he makes your day a little less bright. But I think all of this makes a lot of sense, and I look forward to voting on it next week. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Others? I had a couple of questions. Help me understand, and this doesn't have to be this moment, but the interaction between bike lanes and buses. If we're queuing buses along 59th Street, are they queuing basically in the bike lane? That's a question. And does it matter? Do we care?
Would not be queuing in a bike lane.
Because that
Even if
lane's
the-
far enough off?
Yeah, there would be room
Okay.
for a vehicle travel lane on the street, then the buffered bike lane, and then the bus stacking and waiting lane that was presented in the previous petition.
Okay. Do we, between Fairview and Main, do we own 59th entirely? Does the village own 59th Street entirely?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I like the idea of separating bikes and cars, but I also am, I've said before, I'm not a big fan of signs. The county designating as a bike route doesn't do anything for the biker. It just means somebody in Wheaton signed their name to a piece of paper. And I kind of feel that way about lines and Sharrows, too. It's not... I guess it tells somebody where somebody else thinks maybe they should ride, but it doesn't really do a lot for safety in my mind. If we own 59th Street, why couldn't we make it a two-lane road with a bike road? Why does it have to be the existing pavement? I mean, I realize there's a cost component. I totally understand that. Certainly, I can grasp that concept. But this is one of the wider roads we have in town. It's one of the cross sections that is sort of, there's real estate available, if you will. And I guess I'd like to learn more about why, if it's cost and timing, that's an answer. But if there's something other than that, I'd like to understand what it is that causes us to not want to consider that.
Yeah, so the background on that is when we started this neighborhood traffic study approach, we limited the discussion to sort of existing pavement when we started this journey. Work within the curbs or the edge of the pavement and do those kinds of things. So that's how we approach this neighborhood traffic study number 9. If it's the will of the council, especially when you get into the enhanced bike and ped plan, to change that approach and put more items on the table that would require significant physical changes, then of course we could do that. But that's why it was framed within these approaches.
That generally is something I'm far more interested in than paint. And then another sort of related thing, there is a train of thought out there that suggests, sort of tongue-in-cheek almost, but I think there's people allege to have data supporting it, that parked cars end up serving the same function that we sometimes intentionally do in places where we narrow the road. We do bump outs at corners. And the effect on drivers is, in theory, to slow them down because of the visual effect of a narrowed road. Do we worry at all that just a painted bike lane and then kind of guaranteeing that there's no cars turns it into an expressway? Maybe not at 59th, but I definitely, Fairmount is already an expressway. The downhill thing is entertaining for a lot of people. So I guess I'd just add that to my commentary about trying to physically separate lanes. If we end up not doing that because we want to do something here now, then I'd like to know what things we think we might be able to do. If there's striping considerations that could be done, if there are other things that are done where the striping is, instead of just one white line, if it's a squiggly line with things that stick out, if there are elements that cause people to not view this as now an extra wide road that they can really fly on. Do we think there's any help for Fairmount traffic volumes by eliminate those left turns at Fairmount 59?
Question again, Mayor?
Do we think there will be a reduction in volume on Fairmount as a function of eliminating those left turns?
That's something we can look into. I know when we did the study, it was consistent with 58's recommendations as well to get rid of the lanes. Part of the reasons why we get rid of the lanes is for the confusion. When cars come to the intersection right now, there's a straight-through lane and there's a turn lane. So folks don't know who's going to go first, who has the right-of-way. By eliminating those turn lanes, it gets rid of some of that confusion. So that was the reason why.
I'm not opposed to eliminating them. I'm just wondering if that's an additional benefit to the whole thing.
Nothing that we could see in the study, no.
Okay. Okay. The only other comment I guess I had is on the stop sign front. That's one of the other questions in front of us. Stop signs are, in my mind, the emphasis the village has put, this council and the previous one has put on stop signs is not so much about cars and cars, which is what yield signs are for. It's about cars and pedestrians. And so I guess unless somebody thinks that additional stop signs cause a less safe pedestrian environment, unless that is someone's opinion, I'm borderline disinterested in the inconvenience that they cause for drivers. So that's just my 2 cents on it. It's consistent with the idea that what we're trying to do is create an environment village-wide that is enhanced for pedestrian safety, increasing the likelihood that people actually utilize our sidewalks and traverse in some non-motorized way. So I'm all in on trying to do that. Any other council comments or questions? Mike, please.
Just echo what you say, and generally I think it's a good idea to put up a stop sign before an accident happens. And then in terms of eliminating those left turn lanes, I think there's a safety consideration for pedestrians there too, in terms of crossing the street and not having to cross so many lanes, right?
Right.
I think that was part of the goal of that as well.
They're only crossing the two lanes versus.
So pedestrian safety issue, that improves that intersection in that way.
Yeah.
So, that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else? Okay.
Okay, so we'll get some more information when this comes up again next week. Thank the council for all the questions and policy directions so far, and that ends our first reading, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Scott. Do you have a manager report, Dave?
No report tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Enza.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a report. I have 10 items to present tonight. The first is an ordinance amending certain water billing provisions, an ordinance amending the 2024 stormwater utility rate, an ordinance amending Chapter 1 and 2 of the Municipal Code concerning Home Rule Authority provisions in the Open Meetings Act guidelines, an ordinance amending the Employee Administrative Rules and Regulations, an ordinance rezoning certain property located at 4434 Middow, an ordinance adopting an institutional master plan for the property located at 5435 Middow, an ordinance vacating certain portions of the public right-of-way adjacent to 1230 Grant Street and portions of both Middow and Linscott Avenue adjacent to Herrick Middle School, an ordinance rezoning certain property located at 635 59th Street, an ordinance adopting an institutional master plan for the property located at 635 59th Street, and an ordinance amending certain traffic control provisions and speed provisions. That is all, Mayor. They will all be on next week's active agenda.
Thank you, Enza. Item 10 is our mayor's report. I do not have a report tonight, so we'll move on to council member reports. It's an opportunity for council members to report on events in the community that they're aware of or participate in, other groups that they're engaged with, or items they think the public should hear about. So we'll start with Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have any report, but I may have answered my own question earlier with respect to the ability to put restrictions on parking and traffic and safety issues surrounding O'Neill, and I think it's, Village Attorney will correct me with respect to 2812-030I, but it clearly is covered in the ordinance adopting an institutional master plan. 2812-040C5 little e, which is whether appropriate terms and conditions have been imposed on the approval to protect the interests of surrounding property owners and residents, existing and future residents of the PUD and the general public. So it just took me some time to find it.
Thank you.
For the record, thank you.
Thank you. Chris?
That's what I was going to say. So I have no report. Thank you, Martin. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Greg?
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize for being late tonight. I was at the Downers Grove North Holiday Mosaic Concert, which, if you've never been before, go. You'll have to go next year, I suppose, because both shows were tonight. But you can catch it on their YouTube channel. The DGN Fine Arts YouTube channel will have it up sometime in the next week or so. It is about 75 minutes of absolutely great entertainment. I encourage you to go out and watch it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mike?
I think everyone's heard enough from me tonight. No report.
Danny?
No report. Thank you, Mayor.
Leslie?
I just wanted to wish everyone, knowing that we're in the middle of Hanukkah right now, happy holiday season. So I didn't want to be late, knowing that there are some folks who are currently celebrating. So happy holiday season to everyone.
Thank you. I'm going to just mention, all kidding aside, that's why we have 7 different individuals representing a cross-section of our community, from where we physically are, to what our demographics are, to our professions, to our interests. It's an important piece of why this council is what it is and how it serves our community. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all, and good night.